This is Math 6, Lesson 1-9, Dividing Decimals. Dividing a decimal by a whole number. To divide a decimal by a whole number is not difficult. You just need to make sure you know which number is doing the dividing and which number is being divided. When you read in mathematics, if I have 385.6 divided by 8, the divided by 8 tells you that 8 is doing the dividing. 8 is the number that is doing the dividing. It's called the divisor, which means 385.6 is your dividend. It's being divided. So if I'm going to take and divide 8 into 385.6, before I do my division here, I'm going to think back to when I did compatible numbers, and I'm going to estimate. Because if I do a quick estimate in my head really quickly, and then I do dividing, and then they're close, then I will know that I'm on the right track. So if I do a quick estimate here, I'm going to keep my divisor as 8, and I need a number that's close to 385 that's divisible by 8. And my brain says 320 or 400. Well, 400 is closer than 320, so I'm thinking 400 divided by 8. 8 goes into 450 times. So my number should be close to 50. I should use my approximately equal to symbols. So now when I actually divide, if my number is like 3.6, I'll know I'm really far off somewhere, and I made a mistake. So let's take a look at this. To divide, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my decimal point straight up, because I'm dividing by a whole number, so I want to bring my decimal point straight up so I don't forget to do that. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think to myself, how many times will 8 go into 3? Well, it won't go into 3, so I'm going to leave that blank. How many times will 8 go into 38? 8 will go into 38 4 times, because 8 times 4 is 32, so I'm going to put a 4 above my 8. 8 times 4 is 32. 38 minus 32 is 6. Bring down my 5. Now I'm going to think to myself, how many times will 8 go into 65? Well, I know that 8 times 8 is 64. So I'm going to put an 8 here, and 8 times 8 is 64. 65 minus 64 is 1. And I'm going to bring down my 6. How many times does 8 go into 16? Twice. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 minus 16 is 0. So 385.6 divided by 8 is 48.2, which is remarkably close to 50. It's less than 2 units away from 50, which means my estimate was pretty close. My answer is pretty close to my estimate, which means I'm probably right. I know I'm right because I've done this problem before. But you could look at this and say, my answer is close to my estimate, then either my estimate is wrong, or my answer is wrong, or I'm both right. Let's look at number 2, 9.12 divided by 6. So 6 is dividing into 9.12. Well, think about this. If I wanted to round this a little bit, I would say 9 divided by 6. That's approximately equal to 1.5. So there's my approximate answer. That's my estimation. Now I'm going to actually divide. So I'm going to take my 6 and I'm going to divide into 9.12. Bring my decimal point straight up. If you're not a person who can do this really, really neatly, I would suggest using graph paper. 1 number per box will keep your numbers very neat and tidy, and you'll have a less likelihood of making a careless error by having a digit misplaced. Alright, 6 will divide into 9 one time. 9 minus 6 is 3. Bring down my 1. 6 goes into 31. Well, 6 times 5 is 30, so 6 times 5 is 30. 31 minus 30 is 1. Bring down my 2. 6 goes into 12 twice. 2 times 6 is 12. So my answer is 1.52, which is very close to my estimate. So the answer for 9.12 divided by 6 is 1.52. Dividing by decimals, dividing a decimal by a whole number is not difficult. Dividing a decimal by another decimal is also not difficult, but you have to remember a specific rule. To divide a decimal by a decimal, you must multiply both the dividend and the divisor by a power of 10, either 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, etc. So the divisor is a whole number because you have to get your divisor to be a whole number. The number doing the dividing must be a whole number. So, to divide a decimal by a decimal, you must set up your problem correctly. Make the divisor a whole number by clearing the decimal point. Move the decimal in the dividend the same number of places as you moved the decimal in the divisor. Bring the decimal point straight up and then divide like normal. Let's do a couple of examples to make sure you're understanding. I have 0.475 divided by 0.05. First thing I need to do is, if I was going to write this number, it would look like this. I cannot have a decimal dividing into another decimal. I must move this decimal point in the 0.05 to make this a whole number. I need to move the decimal point 2 places to the right, so I need to do the same thing in my dividend. So now my divisor is 5, and my dividend is 47.5. And I like to rewrite my numbers so they're neat and tidy. So here I have 5 dividing into 47.5. 5 does not divide into 4. So I'm going to just leave that blank. 5 will go into 47 9 times, because 9 times 5 is 45. 47 minus 45 is 2. Make my decimal point straight up because I forgot that. Bring down my 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So 0.475 divided by 0.05 is 9.5. Basically, I'm taking 475 thousandths and I'm dividing it by 5 hundredths. I want to know how many little 5 hundredths are in 475 thousandths. Let's take a look at the next problem. 9.674 divided by 0.7. Okay, so I'm basically having this. I have to make my divisor a whole number. This number is my divisor. I need to make it a whole number by multiplying it by 10. Moving the decimal point 1 to the right is the same as multiplying by 10, so I need to do the same thing here. So I now have 7 dividing into 0.74. Bring my decimal point straight up. So 7 dividing into 96.74. 7 goes into 9 one time. 2 left over. Bring down my 6. 7 goes into 26. 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 4 is 28. That's too big, so it has to be 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 6 minus 1 is 5. Bring down my 7. 7 goes into 57. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 minus 6 is 1. Bring down my 4. 7 goes into 14 twice. That's a terrible looking 4. So there we have it. 9.674 divided by 0.7 is 13.82. There are 13.82 7/10ths in 9 and 674 thousandths. One last problem. 163.125 divided by 2.9. So I move the decimal 1 place here. I need to move the decimal 1 place here. So I now have 29 dividing into 1631.25. Now this gets slightly more complicated because now we have a 2-digit number. And I look at people and they go, I don't know how many 29s will go into 1,631. You don't need to know that. Break your number down a little bit smaller. How many 29s will go into 163? Well, let's think about this. 29 is close to 30. 30 will go into 163 how many times? I'm thinking 5, because 30 times 5 is 150. So I know that 29 should go into 163 about 5 times. Now I'm going to do my multiplication. I don't do my multiplication off to the side and start doing 29 times 1 and 29 times 2 and 29 times 3. I don't do that. I do mine by estimate. 5 times 9 is 45. Carry my 4. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 9 is 45. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 4 is 14. Now I'm going to erase those thingies to not confuse me later. So 163 minus 145 is going to borrow here. 85 is 13. 5 minus 4 is 1. And put it down by 1. So now I have 29 into 181. Or think about it, how many times will 30 go into 180? I'm thinking 6 times, because 6 times 3 is 18. So I'm going to put a 3 up here. I forgot to bring my decimal point straight up again. Silly me. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. What am I doing? I said 6. Why am I using 3? Silly me. Oh, let's go back. Back. 6 times 3 is 18, and I put a 3 up there instead of a 6 up there and messed myself up. So let's put my decimal point back up here. Put a 6 up there. There we go. That's better. 6 times 9 is 54. Bring over my 5. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 5 is 17. So I have 181 minus 174, which happens to be 7. Bring down my 2. How many times will 30 go into 72? Well, 30 times 2 is 60. 30 times 3 is 90, so we know it's not going to go in 3 times. So 29 will go into 72 2 times. 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 14. Bring down my 5. How many times will 29 go into 145, or 30 going into about 145? Think about it. 3 times 5 is 50, so I'm thinking 3 times 5 is 15, so I'm thinking 5 times. And if you look up here, look. See, 5 times 29 was 145, so I'm going to think 5 here. 5 times 29 was 145, so that's a 0. So my answer is 56.25. If you're neat, you can figure out your errors, like I made an error. Teachers aren't perfect. I made an error. I figured out I made an error. I corrected my error, and we went from there. That happens. As long as you can find your error, mistakes in math will happen, but that also helps you to learn. I learn more from my mistakes than I ever do my successes. So don't give up when you make a mistake. Look it over, figure out where your mistake is, and move on.